Passes for Narcision. Goes around the outside, it's in his team.
Qualified.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of Barely Qualified, a Formula One podcast. We are fresh off of our rebrand. We are knee-deep in F1 news, and we're still trying to play catch-up. We're backtracking and covering the stories of yesterday for you to listen to today. I just made that up on the spot. That sounded nice. Today, we're going over team principal allegations, team principals being canned, and one F1 entrant not getting the okay by Formula One themselves. We're talking about Andretti not getting into F1. We're talking about Gunther Steiner being fired, and we're talking about Christian Horner possibly being a little creepy. Welcome to the show, guys. This is Formula One. This is what Formula One is.
This is Formula One.
This is Barely Qualified, a Formula One podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Channing Apodaca. You are?
Brandon Wood.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Yeah. So, still a couple weeks out from testing.
Oh, my God. I can't wait.
But there's been so much news happening, so much going on. We just can't wait any longer. We got to get into it.
Can't keep our greasy little paws off this news.
So to start, I think the biggest story coming into, besides Lewis going to Ferrari, we got Andretti, who was trying to get in as a team on Formula One for 2026. They came to the table boasting Cadillac and GM as a potential partner.
Big names. And they're doing this saying that we will be a true blue, red, white, and American team. We're going to use an American engine manufacturer. We're going to be based out of the United States, which is a good thing. There are now 3 races in the United States alone and 5 in North America.
Yeah, it's a huge deal because most of the teams are all based out of the same region in Europe, which, it makes sense. A lot of people are, working different teams and stuff. It's good to be around and, be in the mix with what's going on. But Andretti, in the hopes of being the first fully American team on the grid, put in their proposal last year. Around this time last year was around when we got the news of the Cadillac thing. So this was the big partnership that they were looking for to get the thing across the line. The FIA did their whole investigation. They looked into the specs of the car and the motor, and they felt that Andretti was coming in with the proper stuff, and said that, okay, well, we approve of this. We're just going to move it on to Formula One management so that they can approve the deal. This was the big kicker, though, right? Because the way the structure's set up, you got the 10 teams that all have at one point paid to be into the organization and all share earnings, and the idea of an 11th team being on the grid was not very popular, right? Because nobody wants to give up a tenth of their potential earnings, in an effort to have another competitor that's maybe gonna
Despite the fact that this competitor, I think, we're not going to see another possible entrant as good, as sexy, or as well prepared as this for a long time.
Well, that's a big part of this whole thing, because the FIA said that their Andretti was coming correct, but Formula One management did not think so. So they formally denied Andretti's proposal for 2026, stating that they didn't feel like Andretti would be coming in and be competitive enough, and they didn't feel like what they said was
the direct quote was that Andretti would be getting more out of this deal than Formula One would. They wouldn't bring any value to Formula One as much value as Formula One would bring to Andretti. Which, get fucked.
Well, yeah, it's how are you guys determining that? It's what factors are?
It's such a crock of shit to me. I haven't been around to see a new team try to enter, in my fandom. I think Haas was the closest one, but they fucking let Haas in. They let Haas in, and I don't think a team can be as prepared as Andretti is.
Sure.
Like that's an existing motorsport team that already exists in a competitor series. All they have to do is transition certain things and hire the right guys. They have the fucking money there. They have the wheel knowledge. They know what they're doing. They literally come from a family of Formula One champions. Like that is what the lineage is. So for them to be denied by saying that like they're not ready, that they're not going to bring anything in, that it reads as BS to me.
Yeah, part of the language that they used was that they didn't feel that Andretti would be able to come in and compete for race wins, which that expectation is like...
You got 9 teams that aren't competing for race wins. What are we talking about?
Exactly. So it's just kind of unrealistic goals for which they felt that Andretti needed to hit. But obviously at the end of the statement that they put out, they said potentially there could be they're leaving the door open basically for them to try again in 2028, right? After the regulations have already changed. When GM said they wanted to come in because for their 2026 bid, they would have had to be a customer team for the first 2 seasons or whatever. So they would have had to buy an engine from somebody.
Yeah.
And that is part of the kicker, which they use as like an excuse, which is just, like you said, it feels like they're drawing for excuses, right? They're
looking
no.
for reasons. They're looking for things to say. Speaking of what you said about them not being competitive or being able to compete with race wins, did you happen to see what Scott Dixon said? When they were officially denied? Scott Dixon, IndyCar driver. I think he's a 2, maybe 3-time IndyCar champion.
At least 2, yeah.
He was like, "That's fine. You don't want us in there," which he like kind of, he said us like all encompassing, which I don't think he drives for Andretti.
Yeah, I don't know.
I forget who he drives for, but anyway, he was like, "You don't want us? That's fine. We'll stay here and with our 30 cars, our X amount of teams, X amount of drivers,
X amount of winners in our
X amount of winners, and then not knowing who's going to win every single race." I didn't like that.
Yeah.
It pissed me off. I'm mad about the situation, but I'll kick back on that sentiment because Scott Dixon, you would have taken an F1 seat 15 years ago if you had gotten a fucking sniff. So shut up. Okay, I love IndyCar. That's great. It's its own thing, and I want Andretti in, but shut up.
Yeah. Well,
I'm just going to say that to defend F1.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I understand his feelings because
I get it.
And as Americans, right, and American fans, it kind of feels like with, the amount of, there's much more races in America, like they're trying to grow the American fan base.
Like they want to use what we have, but not let us in.
Yeah,
because Haas is not a true American.
Yeah, they want to take our money, but they don't want to let us participate.
Exactly.
So it just kind of feels like a little bit of a slap in the face. But at the same time, I'm not surprised, right? Like the teams are the ones that were the deciding factor. I think on this,
one of the big things is that the sway that the teams have, and just saying like, no, we don't want this, but like saying that they're not ready or that they don't bring value, I think is bullshit because F1 is trying to monetize on this American audience. You're not going to get any better than the Andretti name in Formula One. Because, again, I've said it multiple times in this episode, Haas is not a true American team. You want to really capitalize on the American audience? Give us a fucking team. Give us a real fucking team. Because we're going to talk about this in a second. I've completely hopped off the Haas bandwagon. I've been a Haas fan because of their American ties, which I'll call it. I'm off. Okay? Give us a real fucking team. Mm-hmm. If they have to take somebody else's spot, which I think is going to happen eventually, then I guess we'll go about it that way. But why not let a fucking 11th team on? And then you can shorten it to 10 in the next 5 years because we're going to lose somebody. One of these teams is not going to last.
I think what they would rather have is Andretti buy a team from somebody that would be leaving, right?
That's what I think. That's why they're pushing them out. I think one of the big things is that they don't want 11. And certain teams at the bottom already have they're already through the door.
Yeah.
So instead of having to kick somebody out, they're just allowing those teams to stay and be at 10. So and I like it at 10. So I do like it at 10.
Yeah, so then begs the question, why were they even fielding entries in the first place? Why were they even having Andretti or anybody
They
else go
fielded
through
3 entries.
That's what I'm saying. Like, why were they even doing this?
Well,
It's
the
because-
FIA was doing that.
Yeah.
The FIA was fielding these entries and listening and taking the applications. Formula One, however, was not.
Yeah,
The fact that they're so far apart on communication, like Formula One itself could have said no. FIA, they could have done that from the outset. The fact that the two organizations are so far apart on just
Everything.
communicating that,
Yeah.
it's frustrating, dude.
Apparently in 2026, so they have a Concord agreement, which is about the intellectual rights of Formula One and the deal that they have with FIA to be the governing body of it. So apparently, and like the TV rights and all that stuff is all linked into that, right? And apparently in 2026, the current deal is up, and that's when they have to like sign and renegotiate a new deal.
Yeah.
Which is then just kind of why people are saying they're just gonna why they left it open at the end of it for 2028 for Andretti's, because they're maybe just kicking the can down the road a little bit, hoping that when they sign a new Concord agreement in 2026, they're able. I think they want to up the amount of money that Andretti would have to pay to be able to get in, right? Like,
So they're trying to fill their pockets to
a little bit more, which is like, it just kind of sucks, right? It's like we want to see it just happen naturally and smoothly, and not like have all these people being like,
That's
no,
like
you
a
gotta wait 2
dealership
years so we
leaning
can make
towards-
a little bit more money.
It's like a dealership leaning towards financing instead of taking cash up front, you know? Because you could go, oh, I'll give you $10,000 cash. I'll walk this car off the lot today. Or the dealership going like, no, why don't you just finance it through us and we'll get an extra $700 because of interest rate. So,
Well, they get a kickback from the bank.
Exactly. So like them kicking the can down the road a little bit is like, all right, they're going to fill their pockets with, I mean, what extra would it be? Because it's already X amount of $100 million to enter.
Yeah.
Maybe they would get an extra 50 to 60 million.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think it's ugly. I don't like it. I would love to see Andretti in F1. I don't think there's a better entrant. I don't think there's a better candidate to represent the United States on the Formula One front, and it sucks.
Yeah, and there is light at the end of the tunnel, because with the statement that Andretti Group put out was that they're going to be continuing the push to try to get into Formula One at pace. So
They said that they're going to try and get him by 2026, right? They're eyeing the new regulations.
well,
I know
that's
Formula
what this
One
was all about, right? So
yeah, well, they stated like something about their their initial application, because they got denied for the 25 season, but they were like, but we didn't apply for 25, we applied for 26. And now the FIA or Formula One is trying to kick them back to 28.
I don't know.
What I think is going to end up happening is Formula One's not going to let them in, and Andretti's going to get frustrated and go, then we'll just stick to IndyCar. And I think that's a terrible
Or they'll
outcome.
just sit and wait in the lurch until they get a team that's willing to sell them, like Haas, maybe?
That'd be fucking beautiful. And what Andretti would do would clean house, get rid of every bit of engineering they have.
Yeah.
They would basically just be buying their garage space,
Yeah.
on the grid. I think if Andretti bought that team, which fucking great, like do it. It's not the way I would want you to go about having to get in, but great, do it.
Yeah.
And I said before they should partner with Haas, but it's not looking like that's possible.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen.
But buy the team and then gut it and start from the ground up.
So should we talk about Haas a little bit?
We have to talk about Haas a little bit. Beginning of, what was it? I mean, this was the first.
One of the first bits of like.
This was the first domino to fall in the big news. Was that Haas, F1, Gene Haas, and company have officially parted ways and let go Netflix star, team principal, all around everybody's favorite guy, Gunther Steiner, officially no longer team principal of Haas F1.
It's huge.
Big news.
Was not expecting that. I mean, of all the team principals, he's probably, if not the one of the most recognizable team principals.
Yeah, I mean, for his role in the Netflix show,
Right.
all of that. But also, he does more for his team than I think a lot of team principals do, because Haas is such a small outfit. He's out there collecting sponsorship money. He's doing things outside of his role of just managing the team.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing tenfold.
Mm-hmm.
And they decided to let him go. and they promoted. What's that dude's name? Io.
Right. Yeah. One of the lead technical.
He
guys.
was the lead engineer. I forget the dude's name. Anyway, I mean, in my opinion, that dude's responsible for the fucking demise of why Haas has been a terrible team. So promoting him, getting rid of Gunther when Gunther's trying to build this team up is just a sign to me that Haas F1 is not and has not been in it to be competitive. What's his name? Io Komatsu.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good restaurant. Anyway, it shows to me that they are not in it to win races or to be competitive. Maybe their first few seasons when they came in and they kind of shocked the world, they were like, oh, maybe we can be this thing. I think they're just there now to collect a purse. I think it's just Gene Haas sticking around to collect that his 10th of the purse at the end of the season and putting in the bare minimum.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure
he's profiting by being in 10th, by being in the back.
I mean, I don't know how much he's actually maybe profiting, but
No, they are, because they're not putting in enough money to counterbalance how much they're making from their 1/10.
yeah.
So it literally is just like a cash grab by having this fucking team. And it shows that they have no interest in actually being competitive. They have no interest in representing the United States on a global level within this sport. When you have this other team that really, really does want to do that. And so it's completely counterintuitive to everything that the FIA was saying about Andretti's place in the sport. About, Andretti doesn't stand to bring enough value to Formula One as Formula One would bring to Andretti. Then how the fuck do you explain Haas? Because they bring zero value. They literally fired the only good thing going for that team. Outside of Nico Hülkenberg, who we all love.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Gene Haas, though, and you're looking at the past 3-4 seasons, and you're
if I'm Gene Haas,
I've been spending this much money
first.
The only thing I ever get is that, hey, Gene, I need more money. You know, like at what point do you say, okay, I'm done giving more money. You guys have to like figure out how to use it better. Because one of the things I've heard is that like one of the issues with that team is that like they claim that communication was was an issue as far as like getting the upgrades that they tried to implement to actually like have results. And it's hard to say like what really is the thing that's missing without being on the inside, you know. But
that team is, I think, cursed from the beginning because like let's look at their roots. They are a buyer team. They buy parts from other teams. They aren't an engine supplier. They get their engine from Ferrari, which is a power unit that we know has problems.
It's much more than the engine. It's like suspension.
But I know, their body style because they use a Ferrari power unit. Their body style sort of follows the Ferrari.
It has to,
which in turn means that they have degradation problems on an already slow car. The Ferrari can kind of get away with it because it's a quicker car.
Yeah, and the works team, they have the resources to be able to work around those issues.
They're not a works team. They are a private team that buys everything. They're slow, they have no money, and they have all these same problems that Ferrari has. So they're just like in the fucking pit. They need money to up those things, or they need to completely start from scratch and get like a Mercedes power unit. Maybe get Renault on board. I don't fucking know, but like
some big changes need to happen, right? Like,
and they need it from the ground up. So for Gene to be like, yo, you guys need to figure this shit out, then you got to start fresh, but they are going to need more money. And Gunther asking for more just wasn't in Gene's plans. And I don't think that Gene has long-term, I don't think Gene has longevity in F1, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, in a couple of years, if they keep getting last place year after year, you know, maybe we'll see some of those talks start to heat up a little bit. And
their new team principal went on the record at their car launch and said, yeah, we're going to be in 10th place in Bahrain.
Yeah, we're expecting to be a slow start.
Then why the fuck did you fire Gunther?
Well, I mean,
like, what good does this do? Because he was asking you for money? Then he at least has it in his heart to do better. To do better.
Do better.
Gene wants to do better. And they think that it's going to be better? They think it's going to be better? It isn't. It fucking isn't.
How amazing would it be if they like jump up to like 7th or 6th place?
That would under Io.
Jumping past the Alpines, just yeah.
Isn't how sad is that we would be floored if Haas finished 7th?
I mean, I'm
surprised they finished dead last the last 2 years.
Yeah, we wouldn't miss Gunther that much if they can convert a top 10 qualifying into like a top 10 finish. That would be
Dude,
amazing.
who knows? I mean, maybe
Yeah.
they'll come out as world beaters this year, and I'm going to be singing my praises, like being like, Haas is red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
True blue till we die. Haas never won. This is our team.
So
Anyway, I think this is just a sign that Haas is not committed to the sport, and it's sad that we're doing what we're doing to Andretti by gatekeeping them when we have this fucking bump on a log of a team
yeah, well,
holding them out.
we got one popular team principal that's already out, and we have another popular team principal that's potentially on his way out.
Literally just wrapped up meetings with an internal investigation from his team. Not even his team, but the parent company.
Yeah.
2 days ago. Christian Horner.
In hot water.
In hot water, breaking news the other day. Christian Horner is alleged to have, I mean, how do you even put this?
See, it's
His
very
managerial style. He's got
what he's being accused of is very vague because the term that they've used to, it's like cross-bordering or something like that, which is like it could be harassment, it could be sexual harassment, it could be like aggressive language, or it could be like a number of different things.
Some things make it sound like he crossed the line sexually, which if he did, he's got to go. That's not going to stand. Other things make it sound like he's just a hard-nosed manager and that you could akin it to like a bullying style of running a team.
Yeah.
Which other sports have gotten rid of general managers for the same reason. And I go, good. But those were bad general managers on bad teams. What you have here, if he's ruling with an iron thumb or an iron thumb, I mixed up green thumb and iron fist. If he's ruling with an iron fist, but getting results, this might age very poorly when the allegations come out, but you got to say, tough cookies.
Yeah. So how this all went down, it was an employee, apparently a female employee, that lodged a complaint a couple weeks ago, and then Red Bull corporate themselves.
Yes, this is not Red Bull Racing. This is Red Bull, the entity.
Yeah, started an investigation in which they had a hearing on this past Friday.
Yeah.
So there's a lot unknown about like what they're going to be talking about, what the deal is. There's like rumors flying around about like the way that the news of the investigation got leaked because it was in Dutch media.
Yeah,
a lot of people
you broke this to me the other day.
People saying that there's a suspicion that the Verstappen family leaked the news. One being Jos Verstappen potentially, that leaked the news of the investigation to Dutch media because apparently behind the scenes for the past year or so, there's been a butting of heads between Marco and Horner about what, I'm not sure, but there could be a number of issues. I know I've seen some complaints about like the way Christian's handled himself in the media, especially after when the cost cap breach happened. The team obviously took a lot of heat.
Yeah. They also butted heads on the Daniel Ricciardo Checo situation. Right? About
just Checo in general.
What was it? It was about it was about bringing somebody in. It was the Nick DeVries.
Oh, DeVries.
They butted heads on that. Christian Horner didn't want him part of the organization, and Helmut Marko did, right? So Christian Horner kind of went out on that. But they kept Jos Verstappen away from races as well. So it would make sense that Jos is the one to leak this if he's got a grievance with Christian.
Yeah.
Because they wanted Max's head clear. They didn't want his dad there present. It's crazy to think that a guy like Max Verstappen, a now 3-time world champion on top of the world, owns a private jet that he's bought all from racing money. One of the most valuable athletes on the planet, still has daddy issues. But a prominent figure like Jos Verstappen just, I guess, is that fucking hooded black figure waiting for you at the end of a race.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's hard to say exactly because, Christian's gotten some slack for just how he's like presented himself and like positioned himself, like positioned the team. He did get a lot of flack and when they were getting a lot of heat about the cost cap stuff and being labeled as cheaters and stuff. He went out and said, "Oh, well, it's very unfair to be labeled as cheaters because it's very detrimental to the mental health of our team members. So it's very unfair to for people to call us cheaters and stuff.
Yeah.
So people were getting mad about him using mental health as like a defense to like the fact that they actually did break the rules, and like that if anybody is culpable to causing mental problems for the people that work at Red Bull, it's the people who caused the cost cap breach to happen, right? It's like so. It's hard to say. I don't know. I think the most recent news we've seen is that after the Friday hearing, that nothing's really going to be concluded anytime soon.
There's no news. Like they're saying that we're going to get to the Red Bull car launch before we get any news, and we'll probably start the season.
Yeah,
I think before any real news of what happened and what's going to happen.
And also, I don't know to what capacity this happened, but apparently Bernie Ecclestone made calls. Or
what does Bernie Ecclestone even have to do with Formula One anymore?
Exactly. Apparently, he intervened and made calls on like about the investigation to like give his 2 thoughts and stuff. And it's like,
dude, you've been out of the sport for...
You've been like, you got arrested for like corruption, tax evasion. What do you get out of here? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, apparently like, who knows? Like Christian's got a lot of ties. Apparently he had a lot of ties with Dietrich, the guy who... Dietrich
Mateschitz, the Red Bull guy.
So after he died last year or the year before, like, okay, maybe, he's not as protected as he once was. That there is a larger sentiment amongst the team that they don't really...
Maybe they're just trying to slay the dragon before it gets too big, because Christian is becoming a very prominent and powerful figure, not only at Red Bull, but in Formula One. Could this be Helmut Marko, potentially like just cutting the head off the dragon before it gets too big?
Yeah. And then like
head off the snake. What's the phrase there? But like stop putting a stop to things before it gets out of hand. Stopping the snowball while it's in effect. How many more metaphors can I come up with? But like, does Helmut Marko have a hand in this? Because he said, "I'm not going to say shit." There you go, Helmut Marko. You want to comment on this? He goes, "I'm not saying shit."
Mm-hmm. Which is very funny because he very often likes to speak his mind.
Say shit.
Yeah.
He likes to get his little stinky eye in
There's
there.
I have like 2 thoughts to close this out, right? Where it's like either nothing's going to happen. Like this is just all going to blow over.
I think that's what it's going to be personally.
Yeah. Or we'll actually see a big shakeup and it'll be like, I don't know. I just don't think anything's going to happen anytime soon. And I think,
if anything happens, it needs to be something that crosses the personal line. Like if it's strictly professional and it's strictly like a workplace conduct thing of him being like, an overbearing dictator type, then they need to bring him in and they need to give him a slap on the wrist and go, you can't do that. It's not 1970s. You can't treat people this way in sport and in professional, settings. You have to be better.
Yeah.
Unless it's crossed that line of something other than that, then I think Christian needs to stay. He is the top principal. He is running the best team in Formula One. He's created a team that is, leaps and bounds ahead of its competition, whether that's thanks to him or not, but he's at the forefront of it. And here's a big thing that we didn't mention. If Christian is fired, there's a clause in his contract that if he gets bounced, Adrian Newey comes with him. That is enormous. Adrian Newey is the greatest designer in the history of Formula One. Last year, he designed the fastest, best, most dominant car the sport has ever known.
And 2 of the 3 things on his bucket list before retiring are working with Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton.
Adrian Newey? Okay, Ferrari World Champions 2026. Lewis Hamilton gets his 8th. He solidifies that greatness. Ferrari wins the World Championship, and Charles Leclerc is, what do they call it, vice champion? And Max Verstappen goes and races Rally or Enduro. I'm calling that right now. Let's go.
Let's do it.
I don't want that to happen, though. I don't know. Do I? As long as Lando has a couple race wins and maybe a world championship under his belt by the time that happens, great.
Well, then Lewis can retire after that, and then it's all Lando after that. So.
And in the meantime, Gunther Steiner has become the team principal of Red Bull Racing. Hey, dude, write that fucking book. Write that narrative, NFL. You can't. Happy Super Bowl, everybody. Is that it?
Yep.
This has been Barely Qualified. We will see you guys in the coming weeks with some more news and notes that we need to catch up on before testing in Bahrain. Peace.